Ginger. Number 4, K. Faust. What?
No need to say anything.
Oh, but I want to. She is a former Weathersfield school librarian and an avid Scrabble player. It seems that she has to travel to places like Alaska or take a cruise to pursue her Scrabble habit, or to get opponents that are worthwhile, I guess. She recently returned from presenting a workshop in Washington, D.C. at a national convention of an altruistic teacher organization, where her topic was using humor in the classroom. Kay always has a joke to share, no matter what the occasion. She's already shared twice with the two of her, with me today. Kay Faust.
Thank you all for coming. Before I share my funny stories with you, I would like to say a word, well, more than one word. I'd like to talk on behalf of why we should support the expansion of the library. It was suggested to me that the library should be housed in the school because school buildings are notoriously underused. This is such a bad idea. A story from London. I was a public librarian and I used to have classes from those schools come to the library because they didn't have good libraries in the schools. They still don't. And I normally opened the big heavy oak door and would greet the kids. But this time I noticed that one of the paras, one of the most experienced para professionals, was dragging a very miserable looking young boy. And as they approached, I said, "Joan, would you mind if I asked Michael if he could do me a big, big favor?" And she looked at me, the little boy looked at me, and I said, "I need somebody very strong and very dependable and reliable." And her face was a picture, and he said, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "I want you to hold this door and let all the kids come in and keep it open because it's very heavy, and if it gets loose, it can really hurt somebody." So he held the door open, and I said, "Thank you so much. You did a great job. Do you think you could do it again when the kids leave?" And he did. And the paraprofessional came up to me and she said, "Kay, thank you so much. Nobody has said a kind word to that boy the whole week." And this is one good reason why we need to keep the town library separate from the school, so that children have somewhere to go where they don't have a history, where they're made welcome and feel comfortable. And another reason is that if you look at the Proctor Library, it's a beautiful, beautiful building. Can you imagine what it must be like for a 4-year-old to walk up those steps into a brick building and see the wonderful bookshelves and thousands of books? And it was like when I went to see the Library of Congress when I was in Washington. I just walked in and I thought, wow, look at the respect these people have for the library. The school library has been in a trailer in the playground with the band and the guidance counselor and the computer lab. I was in there twice. I moved libraries 10 times in 18 years. My job was not just being a librarian and a teacher. I was a PPP, a prep period provider. Libraries are not respected the way they were. Everybody can look up information on the internet, but what they can't do is have that information editorialized, checked, affirmed that this is correct information. The Proctor Library can only be, the land the Proctor Library is on can only be used as a library. When the extension is finished, it's going to be purpose-built. It is going to fit the needs of the community. It's not going to be stuck in the furthest corner of a building. So please, support the library. Libraries are wonderful places, really wonderful. Okay, I was very new to the school, and I had the library arranged with chairs in a U shape. And the chairs had little baskets where people could put their books. And one day a class comes in, they choose their books, and they go and sit down. And sitting on one corner is Chrissy, lovely little girl. And coming next to her, sitting on her right-hand side like this, is a kind of, husky, that's the word, a husky little chap who's got a crush on her. So he sits down and he puts his arm, in a very confidential manner, and it slips into the basket. And he talks to her, and I say, enough talking. He says, I can't get my hand out. This is when I gave myself Teacher of the Week award. Because I walked up to him and I said, don't worry, Justin, we'll get it out. Just pay attention to the lesson. And 5 minutes before, I sent a student to call Mike, the custodian, and he comes in and, it's not like London. I can handle this, because in London, you always wear a sweater or a cardigan. And a kid gets stuck, and you just switch, and you get that sweater up, and there's a little bit of space, and they can get out. Not so in Vermont in the summer. No sweater to pull up. And Mike looks and he expects, he says, you know what, I'm going to have to pull this desk apart. I'll just go and get my screwdriver. So off he goes to get his screwdriver. And in comes Jen, the secretary, followed by Sandy, the nurse. And the kids are jumping up and I'm saying, get back in your seats right now. And everybody does. And in walks the principal. And Marika Moss says, what's going on? And I said, well, Justin's got his arm stuck. And she says, Justin, stand up. And this little boy with all this savoir-faire and dignity he can muster says, well, Mrs. Moss, as you can see, and she barks at him, stand up. And he stood up, and his arm came out. Most of the stories have to do with the elementary school. So I'm sitting in the library one day, and one of my second grade students says, Mrs. Faust, your socks don't match. I said, no, they do. Look, this sock, this green sock, matches the green earring, and this red sock matches the red earring. The kids got so used to me wearing different things, and when we went to Puerto Rico in April, April, it's still mud season here, I'm looking for my Crocs, and I have two pairs, one red and one green, and I can only find one Croc. And I'm looking under the bed and I say, if I can find the right foot Croc, I don't care if it's the wrong colour, I'm taking it. I take a red sock, a red Croc and a green Croc, and one of the kids says, look, Mrs. Faust's shoes don't match. And another student says, she wears them like that all the time. We were only in the school once a week. And I'm not used to answering to the teacher's name or Mrs. A for art. And at the time, we have been so lucky with our art teachers in Weathersfield. They've all been wonderful. And Susan Smith had short brown hair like me. She was a little slimmer than me. But one Friday afternoon, we were exhausted. We were sitting by the office on a bench watching the kids line up to get their bus. And one little girl walked past and she did this. Oh, she said, there are two of you. Okay, last story. Little school, the children are choosing books, I'm stamping, I'm filing, and a little girl comes running up and says, Mrs. Faust, Jimmy pissed in my ear. I dropped my pencil and I said, Jimmy did what? She said, yeah, he came right up close to me and he went, psst.